Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Kareem, and welcome to the Habibis podcast. Three game developers drinking good Arab tea. I'm your host, Osama Dorias.
وأنا فوزي مسمار.
And I'm Rami Ismail and not having tea at the moment.
I am not having tea either.
Me neither.
So I lied basically in our intro.
It's these are always the hardest days. At least for me. I know some people say the last days are hardest. Some people say the first. For me, it's always the first days. But
I agree. Traditionally, it's always been the first 3 days. The first one, the second one is the hardest, actually.
right, yeah. The first day you go in and it's just like it's Ramadan. Let's go.
Yes,
It's new. It's novel.
yes.
Right. And then the second day is like, oh God,
It hits you, right?
Doesn't
the
it get
time
harder
of-
near the end when you're like counting days to like, oh, I can't wait till I never have to do this again for another 11 months.
and it's so weird because then you go like, oh, it's 11 months until the next one, and then it's like it's Ramadan again.
Yes, exactly.
It goes so fast a year in between. It's really strange.
It doesn't make any sense at all. I absolutely agree. But I look forward to it every year. That's the crazy part, is that as soon as it's over, you're like, I'm so glad I went through that, and I'm glad it's over. And then you're like, I can't wait for the next one. That feeling comes right afterwards.
It's I mean, there's always the things about Ramadan that make me kind of nostalgic, and there's the things about Ramadan that make me nostalgic, but I don't like them that much. You know the feeling when you wake up for suhoor.
Yeah.
But you're like definitely not awake yet, but you have to eat.
Yes.
I don't like that, but I
don't.
somehow have fond memories of it because when as a kid I would wake up. And my dad would be in the room. He'd be like, Rami, wake up. It's time for it's time for suhoor. And I'm certain that he would be saying real sentences. Like my brain would just be like, Rami, the car is on the roof. Huh? Hurry up. I'm like, what? Huh? Yeah, okay, I'll be there.
I know exactly that feeling. To be honest, I'm not hungry during sahur time. Like I think many people are not. I just kind of make myself eat something because I know I'd regret it later if I don't, right? So my favorite thing at sahur time is leftovers from the iftar before. If there are no leftovers, I'm miserable in sahur time because I have to prepare something on top of like eating when I don't feel like eating it. So I just scavenge. I end up being like a grazer. I just grab nuts or dates or whatever. I know, like for my some of my family members, because like all my siblings are adults now. They actually prepare food at sahur time. Like they'll be on in the kitchen with pans and pots and making things. That's not me. That's not my sahur experience at all. Either warming up leftovers or just like eating whatever's there.
Because I'm in the Netherlands, a lot of the foods that are traditionally sort of like suhoor, breakfast, like early day food in Ramadan aren't necessarily available here. So my suhoor was always a little Dutch. Like I have like a boiled egg or two, like some bread, some cheese, some honey, some dates, maybe like a muesli kind of thing, and a banana. Always a banana. I have to have a banana. I don't know why, but my dad convinced me that if I don't eat a banana, I'm going to regret it.
Yeah, my mom used to have the same thing with bread. Like you have to have bread in sahur so you're full for the whole day. I don't know if there's science behind that, but I believe it because it's been ingrained in me forever.
It's the kind of thing where nothing your parents say you're entirely sure whether it's correct or an exaggeration.
Exactly.
But it works, so we're going to keep it.
For us, I think a typical suhoor would be very similar to like a regular Jordanian breakfast with like a lot of labane. You guys have that labane?
Yeah.
It's very sour yogurt with like olive oil. Definitely some za'atar, which is like crushed thyme with sesame seeds, dates for sure.
Yeah.
A very specific type of pickles. You guys know makdoos?
I don't.
No.
Oh, you might be in for a treat then. So makdoos is like baby eggplants that are pickled and stuffed with walnuts and chilies.
Oh my God, that sounds delicious.
It's wonderful.
I love all those ingredients.
I've seen those, but I dislike all those ingredients.
I don't like eggplants.
Yeah, I don't like eggplants.
I love eggplants.
But have you tried pickled eggplants though? That might change your mind.
I also don't like pickled food.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
oh,
I'm a
olives.
strange Arab. Not a huge fan. I'll eat them, but
Okay.
Not a
My
huge fan
favorite,
of
like,
olives.
no.
really.
Listen,
Interesting.
if you're gonna keep asking these questions, I'm gonna get kicked out of the Habibis. Okay, like let's
No, no.
So my favorite,
my Arab card gets revoked.
actually, my favorite Iraqi pickled food is mango. We actually have pickled mangoes.
Pickled
Pickled
mangoes.
Yes,
mango in
and the
Iraq.
crazy thing in Iraq, look it up. I'm not making it up. So
Mhm.
I had it for years before I realized it was mango. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was its own thing. But in a
Okay,
similar way that I didn't know pickles were pickled cucumbers
I didn't
until
know that either.
I didn't know that for many, many years.
Blew my mind.
Me too.
It blew my mind.
I thought pickles
It's
were their own thing.
Yeah, me too.
And yeah,
What does pickled mango taste
Mom,
like? I need to try that.
it is so good. That's all I can tell you. Yes, you do need to try it.
is that also different? Because I was just like, Mom, what does a pickle plant look like? And she just looked at me with like the, and just left that question. So, but now I'm wondering what a pickled mango plant would
So
look like.
we call it like the pickled mango. We call it amba.
Mhm.
So it doesn't sound like mango at all. I just thought it was its own thing. It was much later that I realized.
Right.
That. But you're right. I don't see the
Yeah.
connection between mangoes and Iraq. I don't. I guess they're imported.
Right?
And I have no
Does it
idea.
grow naturally in Iraq? It doesn't sound like it does.
It doesn't. I wouldn't know, but I've had it pretty much every time I went to Iraq, and I've had it at home. Like my mom used to like make it. So yeah, there you go. Pickled
We
mango.
have pickled grapes, but it's not like the regular grape plants. It's like it's when the grapes are not ripe at all, like very tiny grapes. We call it hosrum, and it's
Mm.
very bitter.
Hmm.
There's actually and it's pickled with like it's usually in the same jar as like cucumber pickles and radish pickles and olives.
Mm.
Like we like pickle all of these together with lemon, and then like it's usually like a bunch of hosram in there, which is like the baby grapes.
Wow.
Very bitter, like acquired taste.
Right.
But yeah, we actually like even have an Arabic saying like those who can't reach grapes, they say it doesn't matter anyway. It's just hosram, which is like to say like if
make
you
you feel
can't reach
better
something,
about it.
say like exactly. It was terrible to begin with.
I like it. So yeah, we didn't really plan about talking about Ramadan food now, huh? But it kind of sort of happened.
I kind of feel bad because the people that are like the people that are fasting right now that are listening right now, where it's like, welcome to the podcast. Let's talk about food.
What are we doing?
It's pickled grapes so far, so
clearly-
I don't know.
So clearly, next we have to talk about drink. No, let's talk about Ramadan. Actually, I think that would be a fun topic to just sort of like touch on. I know there's a lot of people that are listening that know Ramadan. A lot of the audience is Muslims or Arabs or people from the Middle East. I also think there's a pretty big part of the community that isn't Muslim or isn't Arab or isn't from the Middle East that might not exactly know what Ramadan is. Shall we do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's do.
And we could all give it our different twists because we've all had like different experiences with Ramadan as well.
That's true.
Cities, so it's not homogenous. It's not the same everywhere, right?
As far as I know, I mean the heart of Ramadan I think is pretty similar everywhere, but then everything around it differs a lot. I mean, even in last episode where we just talked about it for a few minutes, there were quite some differences. So the short version is Ramadan is the Muslim September. Islam uses a different calendar. So instead of the Gregorian calendar that we use that goes from January to December, Ramadan is the 9th month of the Muslim calendar. And that Muslim calendar is a lunar calendar. So every new moon is a new month. That means that Ramadan is not at the same day every year in the Gregorian calendar. It actually has been moving. And, Osama, I guess for you as well, when you were young, it was midwinter, right?
Exactly. It was a very short fast.
Very nice.
Yeah.
The good old days.
Yes.
Right. Because during Ramadan, the idea is that a Muslim fasts from the first light of sun. I think the official definition is when you can tell your own shadow apart from the darkness until the disk of the sun sets under the horizon.
Mhm.
And those coincide with 2 prayer times for Muslims. But between those times, you're not allowed to eat, to drink, or to consume anything else.
Mhm.
So
Man, those 2 lines that you said, like when you can't tell your shadow apart, and the disk of the sun. What was the second part? It's
yeah,
like
It's below the horizon.
it's below the horizon. There needs to be two lines in a puzzle game somewhere. So like you will solve this puzzle and you can't tell your shadow from the distance. And the disk of the sun.
I think
Sits
Breath of the
behind
Wild
that
did that
pyramid.
with one of the shrines already or something.
right, probably an Assassin's Creed puzzle somewhere, right?
Beautifully said, Ron.
Right. The fast then progresses for the entire month.
Yes.
The entire Muslim month of Ramadan, which is about 28 to 30 days, if I'm not mistaken, usually.
It's 29 or 30 days, yeah.
29 or 30 days, yeah.
Yes.
It starts by seeing the crescent moon after the new moon, which is actually kind of a mess because you'd think we'd kind of agree on when Ramadan starts. But in good Muslim tradition, there is no centralized agreement on when Ramadan starts.
Yeah. And that's actually historic too, because keep in mind that the first Ramadans that were practiced, the first fasts that were practiced, people were in cities far away from each other. So even they didn't know if the other city was fasting or not. So everyone was kind of just like locally looking at the moon and deciding if they were going to fast. And then as travelers went by, they're like, oh, you're on your 5th day. We're on our 4th day. And it was just, okay, this is just how it is, right?
Right.
I love like, the couple of days or like the week leading to Ramadan when it's like, a conversation with everybody goes like, so did they see it? No? Okay.
Yeah.
They saw it in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
How come they can't see it here? Everybody's talking about if they've seen the moon or not.
Yes.
Right. This year was actually pretty consistent across everybody. Egypt announced for because usually what will happen, most countries have their own rules, right? Saudi Arabia, for example, if anybody sees it, they can go to their local authority and then report that they've seen the moon and testify that they've seen the moon, and if it has been seen enough, then they declare Ramadan.
Exactly.
Well, in Egypt, it's a bunch of scientists, like theological scientists, that will go and check if they can see the moon. And if they don't see it, it's not Ramadan yet. And in other countries, they just use math.
Yeah.
They're just like, okay, well, yeah, the math says the moon should be visible. I don't see it, but the math says it's there. Every country has its own way of getting there. This year, they were pretty much in agreement. I know that a lot of South and West Asia is starting a day later.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, most of the world is starting on the same day.
Yeah,
it's good.
Which is good. I mean, every other year it becomes more consistent. But we've had years where we've had 3 different start dates across the world because of different circumstances and like you said, the different ways that people calculate it. I mean, it's similar to prayer times because technically, the Muslims who pray 5 times a day, it depends on where the sun is in the sky. And a lot of Muslims, like the majority probably of the world at this point, they just don't go outside and look at the sun anymore. They just look at their time and say, okay, the schedule says the sun should be there now. So I think there's been a transition moving away.
Right. There's an app for that.
Yeah. Yes, there is. There are several actually.
It's all great when it all starts at the same time, but when it doesn't end at the same time, that's the problem.
That's the problem.
When you're like fasting for 1 or 2 more days, and like, you see like people on the news go like, "Oh, we're partying and we're eating whatever we want." I just avoided an F-bomb there. Did you?
Do they also announce the start for you guys with this big television show? In Egypt, there would always be this very very stern man, like the head of the religious sciences department, and would just sit there and just talk, and he would just talk and talk and talk. It's like when you're watching a talent show on television and they're at the finals and they have to call the winner and they talk for like 25 minutes before they actually announce it. It feels like that every year. As a kid, I remember just sitting there, just like, come on, tell us. Do it. Can I eat tomorrow or can I not eat tomorrow?
My memory for growing up is unless like we actually were part of the delegation that went to look at the crescent, which rarely ever happened, but it did happen. Sometimes we would go. My memory was the mosque would change its answering machine to say it's Ramadan. And people would all call in at the same time, but you'd get a busy signal for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes before you get a chance to hear the recording. And now that's like we go on Facebook or on the like it transitioned like over the years. You get an email the mosque sends out. You just sign up to a mailing list. Maybe we don't have a TV show in North America for it, but it's something.
Yeah, that's fun.
We have the like I think in Jordan it's the 8 o'clock news.
Right.
So like everybody would be gathering around at the 8 o'clock news, and then like we would call each other. So did they? Is it? No, yes. And then like that's when we know it's finally happening.
I mean, even if I'm not paying attention, I know it's Ramadan because my WhatsApp just blows up.
Yeah,
my WhatsApp it's just gone. I had to turn off my phone for this recording because I'm pretty sure even if I put it on Do Not Disturb, my phone is going to go like, no, you got like 700 messages. We're going to bleep anyway.
It's not that reliable though, so because you get like a lot of those like Ramadan flowers coming in early. People go like, "Oh, it's considered to send me." It's like it's next week, Dad, and it's like, but it's the season. They start getting those flowers early, so like now I know the general vicinity of when Ramadan is starting, but not the exact date from the WhatsApp messages.
Of course, you feel a mood change in people before it comes in as well. So.
Right? Yeah, it's. I mean, it changes life for a month, right? It changes everything for a month. So fast starts, and then the fast is basically there's these two moments, right? When the shadow of you can see your own shadow in the dark. That coincides with Fajr prayer.
Yeah, or Fajr, how we say it. Fajr. It's the same prayer.
so many accents. One episode we should do an accent like comparison or something. Figure out words. Before Fajr, we have a meal called suhoor, which is basically breakfast. Then you fast, and you fast, and you fast until the disk of the sun sets, and at that point there's a prayer called Maghrib. Mm-hmm. Do you all pronounce that different?
Maghrib, same thing.
That's same. Okay. Maghrib, same thing.
Okay. And at that time there's a meal called iftar.
Yeah.
And between iftar and suhoor, you can eat, drink, do whatever you normally do. It's just normal life. But between suhoor and iftar, you fast.
Yeah.
And that gets kind of silly. I will say those two meals get kind of silly because they're these big. I always feel, I don't know if this is true for you, but for me, suhoor always feels very familiar. Like familial, you do it with your family.
Yes.
And iftar feels more communal.
Yes, agreed.
Right. So for us, it was frequently suhoor was what I just what we just described, where you're waking up and you're just like, huh, yeah. I'll come eat. Yeah, for sure. And then you get like yelled at to hydrate because you have to drink. The drinking is the hardest part, obviously.
Yes.
And then you fast. I would go back to bed. Would you go back to bed? Was that allowed?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes, that's what everybody's doing.
Right. If you get really good, you can still be asleep when you go back to bed after you just eat real bad. You go back to bed and you're like, my brain hasn't woken up yet, so I'm out again. And then you fast, and then iftar is usually more communal. Like people do that together. People will go out. People will go on the streets. People will visit each other.
The first week, especially, like the first day is usually like being invited to somebody's like it's usually like the head of the family or like the grandparents' place. Like the entire family gathers at the elders' house for like a big feast for the first iftar. Like the first iftar is a very big family thing.
Right. But it will spill into the streets. It will spill into like the busy streets. It will spill into the mosques. Mm-hmm. Food kind of spills everywhere. Although at the time of iftar, it is food. It is the time where people eat, and you're kind of supposed to eat immediately. It's not okay, at iftar I'll start driving home. No, it's like at iftar you're supposed to be at home and eating.
Like we talked about how dangerous driving is in the Middle East. It is 20 times more dangerous in the 20 minutes leading to the Maghrib prayer start in Ramadan. It's like when everybody, if you're outside and you're rushing back to get home, it's a jungle out there. So there's, because everybody's like racing to go home, because as soon as that cannon is popping, you need to be at home ready to eat. You need to be at the dinner table staring at the feast for the past 10 minutes and go I can't wait till they give me the go ahead.
Right. Did you also start with the date?
Yes, that's the tradition. Is you start by eating the date. My dad
the date and the soup.
Yes. For us, it was shorbat adas. It was lentil soup specifically. That's an Iraqi tradition.
Wow.
Date and soup. But if I'd reach for anything else, my dad would slap my hand. What are you doing? It's not like I would do it intentionally. Sometimes other things look good, right?
Right.
What my dad used to do is that, the minute Maghrib prayer starts, he would smoke a cigarette and then drink a cup of coffee. Smoke a cigarette, drink a cup of coffee, then go to the mosque, pray the Maghrib prayer, and then he would come back and have food. He was like, food, secondary. I don't care at this point. I just have cigarette, coffee, then maybe some water.
Yes.
Right.
And then the prayer, and then comes back and actually has
amazing.
My dad used to, he's quit for several years now, but my dad used to be a chain smoker as well, and the same experience. It's like he would have the date first. I think that was the exception. He'd have the date first, but the cigarette came shortly afterwards. But you could understand that for people who are smokers. Like that's the hardest part for them by far. Not the food, not the drink.
Smoking comes with living in the Middle East, sort of almost everybody I know smoke. I used to smoke. Like the number of smokers was quite high. And in Ramadan, it's it brings out the worst in people, especially the smokers. And you can see them all struggling.
Right, for sure.
A positive thing I think about Ramadan from a work culture perspective is that most companies, they change working hours in Ramadan. So in Ramadan, companies, they usually would start 8:30 to 5:36. Almost all companies work only from 10 to 3 with no lunch break.
Right.
Yeah.
And schools also have shortened hours. So everything have shortened hours. And some countries, maybe that changed, but definitely Saudi Arabia in the 80s and the early 90s, they used to just, give the whole month off. Because you know what? We know it's not going to be productive. Nobody's going to be there. So why don't you just y'all go home? It's good.
Right. Yeah, reduce working hours, restaurants stay open late. In the Muslim world, in the countries that are overwhelmingly or predominantly Muslim, the life forms itself around Ramadan, right?
Yeah.
And all of these decorations will come out, lights, fawanis, these decorative lanterns would come out in Egypt anyway. There would be these specific TV shows, specific music. There would be these people that you'd never hear their songs except for during Ramadan. And there would be TV shows. There would be so many TV shows.
Yeah.
Right? Ramadan specific TV shows.
You could draw a parallel to Christmas in the West. The biggest difference, of course, being Ramadan is on a moving calendar, the lunar calendar. But otherwise, you could draw parallels to how things stop generally, whether you're Christian or not. For Christmas, there's usually a week or two of no work. There's the Christmas music that plays in malls or anything like that.
Everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah, 2 months too early. There are the Christmas special movies that play on TV. You could draw parallels to that if you want to have an idea of what it feels like. But yeah, basically life adjusts around this very festive time.
Also, Fawzi, remember when we talked about the Musaharati last week?
Yeah.
My dad listened to the episode and he said, Rami, did you know that back in the days you would know the Musaharati that would walk through your neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And you could pay them a little, and then they would shout the name of your children as they walked by your house.
No
Rami, wake up! Rami, wake up!
A
I thought that was brilliant.
customizable alarm clock.
I love it.
I thought that was brilliant. But yeah, you can do that apparently. I thought that was very good. I don't know if you ever did that for us, but he said it was possible.
I was just gonna say, like, I didn't celebrate Ramadans in Muslim countries. So I left when I was really young, when I left Iraq, and I've been in Montreal since the age of 5. So I don't have the memories of those. But what I do remember is that my parents went the extra mile to make it feel extremely festive at our house. Like, our house always looked its best with all the decorations in Ramadan.
Right.
It smelled amazing. It was well lit. Like, the smell of like the cooking that happened throughout the day, but also just like generally, I think my mom went around and sprayed perfume or something, because it always, like, it felt and smelled and looked really, really good all the time. I loved Ramadan for that reason. I associated it with that, but I loved also going to the mosque at Maghrib time. Basically, they would have the cut, like, depending on which mosque, they would have different traditions, because oftentimes in Montreal especially, you'd have mosques that are predominantly of one ethnicity or the next, and sometimes they're mixed. Yeah, and sometimes they're mixed depending on the neighborhood. So you'd go to some like mosques, for example, which would be predominantly Pakistani, and they would have the dates, but they would have pakores, which are like fried potato, like seasoned potatoes, I think with eggs and batter, and they would have a samosa, and then they would have a glass of milk, and that would be like the thing that they would give you before Maghrib. So everyone would hear the adhan, the call to prayer. They would sit down, eat for a minute or two, get up, pray, and then a meal would be served. And some people would stay for the meal. Other people had plans, iftar plans elsewhere. One of my favorite places that kind of mixed the both. I don't know how common this would be in the Middle East, but in Montreal it was unique. There was a seafood restaurant, which would be a short walking distance from the mosque. You would go to them, place your order, leave, go pray in the mosque, come back, and it would be ready for you when you came back.
Oh, that's good.
It was perfect. So,
although, would people not hurry through their prayer if that was waiting for them?
You don't have a choice, because you have to follow the imam, right?
You're not doing your own prayer. Yeah,
exactly. But I mean, you still have to wait for your food to get ready anyway. And they would make sure that the food would be served like in about the time that it would take you to come back from the mosque. Anyway,
the trick is that you need to grab the imam with you and make sure that he orders some food too. So that he speeds things up.
Exactly. I love it.
I just remember. I think back in the days, my dad would pray before Maghrib would be called, or like right after Maghrib would be called, and it would always be the fastest prayer. It would go so speedy.
Yes,
because you can very strongly vary the length of prayer, right? In Islam, you can choose to do a very long one, you can choose to do a very short one, but the shortest surahs would always come out when food was about to happen. And I will say that was not just my dad. Everybody I met would do the same thing.
I'm raising my hand. I'm pretty sure it's charged.
Right. It's like, you would normally hear like Surah Al-Baqarah, or like, these very long, very important surahs, and then for Ramadan you'd have like Al-Kafirun and Al-Nas, and that's it. It's like about 6 sentences.
Because a prayer can vary. Like you said, a prayer can go for like 2 minutes, or it can go for 45 minutes, depending on
Well,
on
in Ramadan in mosques, what they would always do as well is at night they would read the full Quran, right?
Yes,
split across Ramadan.
Yes.
So they would there's these additional prayers effectively that people do, where they're reading through the entire Quran night over night, and it starts with Surah Al-Baqarah, the first one in the first surah in the Quran, technically the second surah in the Quran, I guess, but the longest one.
Yes.
And then as they go, they would go through more and more of the Quran until at the end of Ramadan they reach the end.
I was about to say it's because the last 10 days of Ramadan is one of the nights is the night of destiny, Laylatul Qadr, right?
Yes, Laylatul
And
Qadr.
and nobody knows which night it is. So to be safe, you should pray as much as possible in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, because if you hit the right night and you end up praying properly in the destiny night, it's better than 1,000 months of prayer or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly that.
That's a fact, because the reason Ramadan is special, the belief is that it was the month in which the Quran was first revealed.
It became holy,
and that's where the importance comes from. But the idea of Laylatul Qadr is that we don't exactly know what day of Ramadan the Quran was first revealed to the Prophet Muhammad.
Exactly.
Because we don't know, people just sort of pray throughout all those days. Well, the common understanding is it was one of the odd nights of the last 10 days of Ramadan, I think.
And most likely on the last 3 days.
Night 27 is the most likely.
Yeah. It's 25, 27, or 29, most likely 27. Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
But to be safe, just pray your heart out in the last 10 nights.
Exactly.
And hope for the best.
I actually feel like from a cultural perspective, it creates this really interesting tempo to Ramadan.
Yes.
Right? You sort of start with the first 10 days where everybody still has a little bit of energy, and it's you're kind of getting used to Ramadan. There's the festivity is still kind of new. The hanging out with people is still there. In the second 10 days, it's just kind of happening.
Yeah.
Nothing special really happens. Nothing important is happening. You're just doing the fast. You wake up in the morning, you eat your food. You do the fast, and then at the end of the day, you eat your food. And then it's sort of turned into a tempo. Your body kind of adjusts to it. You've probably gained some weight because now you're eating all this food and then going to bed immediately. Everybody always asks, Rami, don't you lose weight if you fast all day? I'm like, no. I gain.
I lose weight every Ramadan. I am the only one who does. But I know, I speak to a lot of different people. I lose weight every Ramadan. I lose between 10 and 15 pounds. It's mostly water weight because I gain it all back right afterwards. But I'm usually always drinking all the time. You always see me with tea, coffee, a glass of water. And in Ramadan, all that stops. And yes, I eat a lot, but I eat a lot all year round. So that's the biggest change that happens is the water. But it's true, most people gain weight. I'm the exception.
No. Yeah, no, I gain weight at the end of Ramadan. And then the worst thing is at the end of Ramadan comes Eid.
Yeah.
Where we just, so Ramadan ends with Eid, which is Eid al-Fitr. Eid is just food. At that point, you just gain more weight. So you do all of this Ramadan, and then you gain weight, except for Osama.
I'm sure there are others out there who lose weight too.
I think it's literally just you. I've never met anybody, never in my entire life, never met anybody who said oh yeah, Ramadan, that's such a good way to lose weight. But yeah, so Ramadan throughout really comes with just a lot. Just there's so much, and then the last 10 days are kind of built around Laylatul Qadr. Where this night of destiny, effectively, where this sort of new thing, it's not a new thing, but this additional thing to Ramadan sort of ends, and then it's also going towards the end of Ramadan, so the energy kind of kicks up again.
Yeah. You know what that reminds me of, actually? It reminds me of a Kickstarter campaign. It kind of starts off strong, and you see a lot of backers, and then there's that that's sort of just there, but nothing's happening, and then it kicks up again at the end.
I guess it's yeah, okay.
I've never thought of that before, but now that you put it that way.
I see it.
We're getting a bit of insight into how Osama mind works, so that how he comes up with those transitions. Now you see why. He sees connections where no one else does.
Well, I guess maybe talking about Kickstarter is a good time to transition back into games, because
I guess we were supposed to start with that.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I mean, it's Ramadan.
It's
Like,
Ramadan.
exactly.
Like Rami has Destiny nights all year long, so Ramadan is just more of that, I guess.
Absolutely. So actually, I have two things to talk about. Two games to talk about. The first is the new Oddworld that came out. It came out on PS Plus. I give it a try. I love Oddworld. I played the original Oddworlds. I can't. Why can I not remember their names? Abe's Odyssey and Abe's Exodus. Is that what they were?
Exodus, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
so, yeah.
I love them to death. They were really, really good. Then I tried to play one of them more recently, and although like I still had the nostalgia of it, um, it was clunky. Like when you try to play an old game, and then you notice that games have evolved as an art in a lot of different ways, and some old games. They haven't they didn't age all that well. So Abe's Odyssey, the charm, and Abe's Exodus, the charm of it was still good, but like the platforming was a little clunky in a similar way that the old Prince of Persia's were. In a similar way that Earthworm Jim is still a gorgeous game, but the collision detection is not great, that kind of thing. The new Oddworld, Soulstorm, is that what it's called?
Soulstorm.
Yes, Soulstorm. Yes. It feels the way I remember the old Oddworlds were. Like it actually feels really good, but if you compare it to the old one, it plays much much better, and it has a lot of the charm of before. And I loved the puzzles. I think they nailed it. In my opinion, I think they did a good job. Like they actually found a way to make a new game that feels nostalgic to those who played the old game. It has way fewer fart jokes and things like that aren't as well welcomed now. But it has all the nice puzzleness to it. It had a pretty good production value. It had cinematics that were actually pretty good looking. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'm looking forward to continuing to play it. I played it for a few hours, and so far it's kept my interest. I like it a lot.
Does it still have like the dark tones that the original platformers had? Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's still dark. It's a little lighter, I would say, color palette wise. But in terms of it's bloody, it's gory. Things are going to explode. There's going to be body parts.
Subject matter was kind of grim, right? Like with all I think in like the first couple of games, you were trying to free your other species mates from slavery, basically.
Yes.
Right.
And this one, like right at the beginning, is that the vast majority of your alien race is still enslaved, and only a small group are free. The ones that you saved in the Exodus, but they found out where you are, so you're under attack, and it starts off like in a grim way where you're seeing your fellow alien species being like devoured and eaten and killed and destroyed. Wow. So it's still grim, but I haven't finished it, so I don't know yet if it has a happy ending, but I believe it does, because there's a lot of prophecy and you are the one who will free everyone that happens in the cinematics. So I feel like it's gonna end well. Who knows? We'll see. That was the first game I played. I enjoyed it. I recommend it for anyone who's
PlayStation Plus, you mentioned?
Yes, it's free on PlayStation Plus for PS5. I don't know if it's free if you have it on PS4. PlayStation Plus is split now, so I don't know which games are which anymore. Since on PlayStation 5 you can play both, but yeah, it's on PlayStation Plus.
Nice.
The other game I played is called Good Looking Home Cooking, and it's actually a visual novel. It's about two friends, one who's a Pakistani Muslimah and the other is Korean, and they start a food truck together. And the game is actually really nice. I enjoyed it a lot. It's an emotional story. It took some surprising twists, but the representation of the Muslim character surprised me. Like it felt incredibly well researched.
Right.
The game I had access, by the time this airs, the game would have launched in Ramadan, like on the day of Ramadan. The food court that they're starting to open it like narratively in the game on the first day of Ramadan. So it's very Ramadan themed, and that's why I chose to to play it. So by the time this comes out, you can actually go and buy the game. I had the privilege of having an early copy because I really wanted to play this game beforehand. I was really intrigued by it. I like it. If you like representation, and not only Muslim representation of all kinds, if you want to see how representation is done right, you could see it. But it also has a lot of like interesting things that they did narratively. It's emotional. Like at one point, honestly, it almost brought me to tears. It was really like heartfelt and emotional. I highly recommend it. You could get it on itch.io. I guess we'll share the link after because it's too long to it's teamtoadhouse.itch.io.
You can also find it at teamtoadhouse.com.
Yes.
I think. So.
Yes. So those are my 2 games. How about you, Fawzi? What did you do this week?
I played a very fun game. So first of all, full disclosure: the developer that made this game, they're good friends of mine in Stockholm. They're called Landfall Games.
Mm-hmm.
And in April 1st, they just, for some reason, decided to release a bunch of games they're working on all on the same day. They call it like the April Fool's Day. I think they launched like 4 games in the same day.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bonkers. It was kind of fun, kind of like seeing them hit launch and like send the games out into the ether and like follow their streams and stuff. So it's pretty cool. One of the games that they've launched is also a game I kind of had a go at during development. It's called Rounds.
Mm-hmm.
I think I got it for like $5 on Steam, so it's cheap to get as well. So it's a fun looking combat game. It's a 1-on-1 game, 2D, in which you're playing with like a stick figure style character. Like a ball with a gun and 2 feet, and you're playing in like Smash-like levels.
Yeah.
Like Super Smash Bros. And like those levels have like physical elements to them. And then like you play like 1v1, and it's like best out of, let's say, 5 rounds. And you just want to shoot each other to death, right? If one of the one is dead in that round, the loser gets to choose an ability. Like there's 5 cards that get presented to you, and you get to choose the ability of that card. And as you add more cards to your character, those abilities stack. So at the end of the 5 rounds, you basically create a build. And the combination of the different builds that your character can get just makes the game all the more wacky and fun. Yeah, just bonkers. So like a lot of those, like some of those builds can just completely go out of control and like become imbalanced. Or like
I'm looking at it now, and I really like the twist of the choosing the ability for the loser to like kind of even the playing field.
It's a perfect feedback loop, isn't it?
Yeah, it really, really is good. Otherwise, it feels a lot like Stick Fight, which I really enjoyed. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think they also launched that on Switch on the same day or something like that. They did so many launches, hard for me to keep track of everything they've launched. But like this one game in particular, I was like quite a fan of while they were developing. It's just a lot of.
Oh, they are the developers of Stick Fight. Oh,
yeah, they made Stick Fight.
Yeah,
yes.
I
didn't realize that.
They made Stick Fight. They made Totally Accurate Battle Simulator and a bunch of other games.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I played a bunch of rounds. It's fun.
It looks really fun. The art is very fun as well. Very simple, but really evocative. They also really get the feedback right, like the sense of like shooting things and the sense of like winning.
Yeah,
is really satisfying. Winning against somebody who has a bunch of upgrades is like jump out of your couch and yell at them happiness.
Exactly. It is totally that. Like, you start to feel, there's no way I can turn this game around. And then, lo and behold, you can. And that's like a really good feeling. And then like that person, and then, you get to put together a combo to pull that together. And like, there's a joy in discovery. What happens if I put this and this together and then like see what happens? And then like, the results are very interesting. Sometimes, like there's I think there's like one ability in which like your bullets become time bombs and then they explode after some time. So sometimes you can put an ability that ends up blowing you up
Right.
so like some
Right.
stuff can like really backfire, and
Oh,
that's
no.
also fun.
Another game that does that is Outriders, which I've been playing over the last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think very similarly, the upgrade system, I don't think they care to balance it that much. I've been playing it a lot, and I think one of the things I've liked about it most, the two things I've liked about it most, is that they have this mod system that is really well done, and this world level system that is very well done. And I talked a bit about my initial impressions of the game last week, but this week these two things really stood out to me. The mod system is probably the most fun mod system I've seen in a long time. All of the abilities are somewhat ridiculous. From like there's a mod that you can put on any weapon that you have that will make it so that if an enemy has a vulnerability, so a debuff, and you hit them with that weapon, the debuff jumps to any enemy that is within 5 meters of them.
Wow.
And that's ridiculous. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Right. That is
so easy to abuse.
That is extremely easy to abuse and extremely aggressive. And that's the point.
Yeah.
Right. And those are the level 1 mods. The level 2 mods are things like, if you shoot an enemy, they explode into a bone shrapnel and like hit other enemies, or bullets go through enemies up to like this amount of time, or freezing the enemies that you've hit with a bullet when you reload the weapon. Like the mods go really, really intense. And some of them are very like, you've got the armor mods are very ability focused. So if you do this ability, then that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the weapon mods get really, really silly in really good ways. Honestly, the armor mods do too. And it doesn't feel like they aim to balance. I think it feels like they balanced it. If they balanced it, they balanced it for imbalance, right? Mm-hmm. Not all builds are equally good. Not all builds are equally bad. Like some builds are just good. They're just ridiculous. They're over the top, and finding those is fun.
Mm-hmm. I'm okay with that. Like any game,
right? Me too.
It's not PvP; it's PvE. So let people explore, and you don't have to put as much focus on balancing things in that.
I would probably also enjoy it in PvP as long as it was not like a main consideration. I hadn't played it with friends yet, and playing it with friends, this hyper aggressive game where you're just running into giant groups of enemies, and everybody has superpowers that heal them if they are aggressive. You get held back if you kill enemies.
Yeah.
With most of the classes, just running in with a group of 3 people and just like, people are flying over the battlefield into a giant group of enemies, and then just like explosions of blood happen in the distance. It's really silly. The writing is abysmal. It's so bad.
Yes, it's really bad.
The game is so fun. It's so fun. It's like I'm slightly angry at how much fun it is. That's how fun it is.
Explain. Why would you be angry?
Don't you have that thing that like everybody has their way of responding to something that's too good?
Yeah.
My response to something that's too good is I get angry. I don't know why I get angry. I'm like, what is this? Now I can't play anything like this again without thinking, well, it's not as good as that.
I see your point.
I have that with food. I was in a restaurant once and I had a bite and it was so good, and the waiter walked by and they're just like, do you like it? I'm like, I'm angry at how good this is. And the waiter just kind of looked at me and went like, okay, sir, enjoy the meal. But it was really good. Like, I don't know. That's the thing I do is when food is really good, I get angry
it because it makes everything else bad in comparison. Right. No, I get that.
It's not like rage angry. It's just like, how can this be that good? Outriders does that with a lot of the game feel of it, right? Like you're just running around and having fun. There's nothing smart about the game. It doesn't try to be smart. It just tries to be fun. And generally it does that. The other thing is the world level system, which the basic version is that it's a sliding difficulty level.
Yeah.
That you unlock as you progress. So you start at level 1, and then you kind of have this experience bar at the top of the screen. And if you defeat enemies, if you progress quests or goals, your world level goes up. And with the world level going up, you get a bunch of rewards. But now you can set the game to that world level. And the basic idea of a world level really is it's a difficulty increase and a loot amplifier. That's it.
Do you know if it's unique to the person when you set it, or is it unique to the party?
It's to the party.
Okay.
But you can have a level 20 player character and go in a party with somebody and set the world level to like 4, where the person who's level 20 can handle it still easily, and the new player can't really, and still make good loot happen for the player who's at level 1. So it's actually really helpful in boosting each other. At least that's the feeling I'm having right now. But the fun thing about it is you can really kind of tweak this game to your specific taste. So I like that this game reminds of Gears of War a little. We talked about that last week as well.
Yeah.
So like sort of like the strategic, like figuring things out, figuring out how to flank, figuring out where the weak parts of an enemy like configuration are. So I have it set pretty high. I have it set to 7 or 8, which to me feels high.
Yeah.
And I'm having a blast.
I'm at 3, but I didn't play that much. But I set it to 3, and I struggled on the first boss with 3. It took me a while to beat him.
And I'm quite happy. I'm very happy for Outriders. Like I think it's a very good example of like a company choosing a perfect release date. Whether they chose it or not, but like they picked the perfect window, really. Like I don't think they would have gotten that same level of attention if they picked another window. And good for them. Like, they made a really good game, and I'm happy that it's getting the attention it deserves.
I'm just happy that it's so clear from the design. Like you can tell that really early on, the design decision was made that fun is at the top of this. Like this ridiculous sense of being overpowered is at the top of this, and even in the more troublesome boss fights, even in the parts that are a little harder, you can still feel that you're supposed to be the powerful one.
Yeah.
Right. There's 1 or 2 fights where I'm like, these weren't necessary. But most of the game is like, you have fun, you go in, you own this battlefield, and see what happens. And I like that stayed very consistent throughout the game. So it's also just very focused design, which I'm always, I admire that.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's what I've been playing. Not much more. Normally we would transition into our topic now.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a good time to end it, I guess, since we already did our topic. How about that?
Right. I think by now, let's see, this will be out Friday on noon. So there's going to be, for me, it's going to be 6 more hours. No, 8.5 more hours until food.
Yeah.
What are your times, Osama?
Oh, it'll be morning for me. So I'll just have started fasting.
Oh, yeah. Well, don't listen to this because I can tell you, we started with a lot of talk about food.
I'll listen to it at night, I guess. Everyone in North America should probably just wait. But by the time they get the message to wait, they would have already listened to the podcast. So it's still
I'm in huge favor of time paradoxes. So
I love
we should put it in the notes, like if you're fasting, proceed with caution. There's food discussion.
I love it.
A Ramadan warning.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Kareem.
Salam.
That was the Habibis podcast for this week. I'm Osama Dorias, your host for this episode. You can find me on Twitter at Osama Dorias. My fellow Habibis were Rami Ismail, you can find on Twitter at @THA_Rami, and Fawzi Mesmar, who you can find on Twitter at Fawzi Mesmar. Send us your questions, stories, suggestions via info@thehabibis.com. Intro and outro music was provided by Malik Zubayla, and the logo was provided by Ibrahim Hamdi. The Habibis is a weekly podcast about 3 game developers drinking good Arab tea, with new episodes launching every Friday, inshallah. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcasting service or check out thehabibis.com for more information. Thank you for listening, and Assalamu alaikum.